On to the art of marketing your own game. We're going to give you 3 case studies from developers that have been successful in creating and exploiting their own games. We intend to, as well as marketing, talk about development and exploitation, the challenges and the opportunities. This panel was going to include Martin Brown, who unfortunately couldn't make it. So I will be stepping in and talking a little bit about Broken Sword instead of Martin talking about Worms. But before then, I'd like to introduce my panelists, Paul Farley and Alex Amsel. Paul's going to go first. He began his career at DMA designing Grand Theft Auto, then founded Tag Games in 2006. He published the GTA beta, Carjack Streets last year, I believe, and Astro Ranch earlier this year. He's going to talk about how development and the marketing and the publishing and the launching of these 2 titles went. Paul.
Thanks, Charles. Good morning. I think it's fair to say that we're in a strange place, and by that I don't mean York, Charles. It's lovely to be here in York. Yeah, Tag, our journey's been quite interesting, I think, over the last few years. We set up as a mobile games developer at a very difficult time where there's also a lot of competition in the space. And we've really changed our business models pretty much on a yearly basis. And we've now found ourselves in this place where we straddle many different identities. And this identity crisis is something that we're really wrestling with at the moment. I think you'll probably see that in the short case study that we have today. Ultimately, we make games and we sell them. I'm not sure whether we're a developer, I'm not sure whether we're a publisher. We do develop games, we make games, but we also self-publish them. We're now doing some third-party publishing as well. So it's a really kind of weird place to be right now, but it's a lot of fun, and we're learning a huge amount during that process. Right now, to give you a bit of background, we're primarily active on iPhone, iPad. We're also doing some work on DSiWare, on PSP Minis. We're just moving into Facebook, which is fantastic as well. So we're spread mainly on sort of mobile and handheld platforms, but also we see a lot of parallels there with the social space as well. In terms of our business model, at the moment, we're very much split kind of 50-50 between work for hire and self-publishing. And in many ways, the work for hire creates the sort of working capital that allows us then to reinvest back into our self-publishing, creating our own original IP. We used to do quite a bit of licensing products from PC and console and bringing across to mobile. But we kind of got to the point where we thought, well, actually, we're now investing in other people's IP. We really don't want to be doing that. We want to invest in our IP and get the full benefit of that. We are in a place right now where we actually aren't doing any kind of traditional publisher-developer deals. We've done that for 3 years. We haven't made any money doing that. It's not a particularly great place to be right now. Ultimately, we weren't seeing the reward from that. There are lots of issues with that, and we're finding more and more we're working outside of the traditional games industry. So we're going to look at two games that we've produced in the last year. The first one is Carjack Streets, which will Run VT. I've always wanted to say that. It's great, isn't it? Run VT. So this is Carjack Streets, and the Carjack Streets started life basically with the creative concept was, okay, can we do Grand Theft Auto on a mobile phone? And if you know anything about mobile phone development, that's quite a task. So Carjack started life as a 350k Java game. We had a 64k version as well, which was awful, but we did it. So yeah, I think we achieved that. And then obviously with the launch of the iPhone, we thought, how can we take this forward? Is there a market for a kind of retro GTA style game? I think also it's fair to point out that this wasn't just a rip-off. We obviously worked on the original GTA games, but we also wanted to kind of look at how do we make this particularly relevant for mobile devices. So we put a real-time aspect into it, so you have to play a little bit every day. I think we kind of had the creative idea, okay, we've worked on GTA, we love those style of games, let's take it onto mobile. But I think also we had to look at a need in the market, and at that point we kind of reviewed it and said, okay, what are our competitors doing? Is there another GTA game in the market? And there wasn't, so we thought that was pretty safe. And now something completely different, which is Astro Ranch, which is the game we've launched about a month ago. Astro Ranch, again, in terms of the creative process behind this, massive fans of Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon, working on iPhone, particularly right now as a lead platform. We felt there was a real space for that type of game. Again, we wanted to look at making that specifically, adapting that specifically for mobile. So again, you play a little bit each day, and there's a real-time aspect where the gameplay sessions are sort of 10 to 15 minutes in length. As you can see, it's quite different to Carjack, and that's going to create some issues that we'll talk about in a second. But again, I think it's very important as game developers, game producers, that we're not just producing games that we want to play ourselves. I mean, in fact, in both cases, that is actually true, but we also have to then look at the market and say, where are the gaps? You know, where is the demand exceeding the supply? And those figures are widely available, whether you're getting that from Gartner, whether you're getting that from Screen Digest. So we had a concept for this, we did some focus testing, we looked at the market data and said, okay, there is a niche here that we can fill. You know, Gameloft, EA, they're not in the space right now. You know, Farmville isn't on iPhone, we can go and do something there. And hey, let's make it 3D and, you know, bite off more than we can chew. So that's where Asheronch came from. I think a very important factor for us is that we don't make racing games, we don't make football games, we're not trying to compete with FIFA. We're trying to do something a little bit different and carve out some niches for ourselves. In terms of the funding of these projects, it's again quite a mix. Both of them were primarily funded from our working capital, from our work for hire work. With Carjack, we had a small innovation grant from Scottish Enterprise, locally in Scotland, which is fantastic. And with Asheronch, we tapped into the EU Media Fund, which is primarily set up for TV and film, but are now funding some games, which is great. So we've been able to spread the risk there a little bit. It allows us to bite off a little bit more than we would normally kind of chew on, I suppose, ourselves. It allows us to be a little bit more ambitious, and I think that's been very important and acting as a catalyst in actually creating these games. So get to the marketing part of this. With Carjack, we did a lot. For us, we were moving into self-publishing for the first time in a meaningful way. We'd taken on a little bit of seed investment. We had some money to burn. We wanted to experiment. Well, actually, we've had a really bad experience over the last few years working with publishers. They produce a marketing plan, but then they don't actually act on it. We haven't seen fantastic revenues coming back. If the game does phenomenally well, our 10-15% doesn't really add up to that much. Can we do this ourselves? Sure, we can fund it. We've done that part of it. But there's other parts that the publisher traditionally does, like market the game. Can we do that? So we've put a lot of effort into marketing Carjack. We pretty much did everything we possibly could think of. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. So everything from PR, so we did a lot of press stuff. There was obviously reviews and previews. We did a lot of interviews. The social side of things, we started Facebook pages. We tweeted a lot. We were on forums. We set up a street team, which is great. So we've got about 10-15 people that are really passionate about this game that was coming out. And we got them to evangelize on our behalf. We spent some money on ads on the web and on mobile, on social platforms as well. And we also spent a lot of time building our relationship with Apple, the platform holder. And we had great support from them as well with Carjack, which is great. So we did all these things, and it was really successful. And we thought, great, we've got this nailed. We know what we're doing now. Publishing is very easy. As long as we can fund this, the marketing part's very straightforward. So with Asheronch, thought, well, we'll just do the same thing again because that worked last time. It's always a bit of a mistake, I think. So with Asheronch, we used the same tools, the same techniques, the same approach, but what we found actually, the actual tribe, the Asheronch tribe, was quite different to the Carjack tribe, different players. There's obviously quite a strong female bias now with our Asheronch players, whereas before, Carjack was almost entirely male. So we had to change the message and the method of delivery as well, and we're still in the process of doing that. We're looking at we launched this a month ago, and we're kind of looking at actually, okay, it's doing okay, but it's not doing anywhere near as well as it could possibly do. We had front page feature on the App Store. I mean, it's just, that's gold dust. It's phenomenal to get that. But it still wasn't selling particularly well. And we had to then step back and say, okay, what is it about this product? What is it about the way in which we marketed that we can learn from? And try not to make those same mistakes. And the great thing, I think, Jefferson was talking a lot about the ability, obviously, on social platforms to iterate very quickly. You launch very quickly, you then iterate and iterate and iterate.